You are Locked On Mets POSTCAST. Part of Locked On Sports New York on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Let's get through this together. Welcome into the Locked On Mets postcast as the New York Mets fall 10-2 to the Los Angeles Dodgers and now find themselves on the brink of elimination. It is win or go home the rest of the way for the New York Mets. And 82% of the time when a team takes a 3-1 series lead, they go on to win the series. And so the New York Mets will have to have one more trick up their sleeve. And after tonight, it feels like the magic is running out. Before we get into everything that went on in tonight's disappointing performance that moves us closer to this Mets season coming to a close, this episode of the Locked On Mets postcast brought to you by PrizePicks. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to win $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. You're not happy. I'm not happy. The Mets aren't happy. Just another disappointing night in what has felt like a disappointing last 4 or 5 days for us watching this team, as for the third time in 4 tries here in this NLCS, the New York Mets get blown out. They allow the Dodgers to score in bunches, and they are doomed by some of the similar mistakes that doomed them in Game 1, doomed them in Game 3, and some of the mistakes that they were able to get away with earlier in this postseason. And it was from the word go that the Los Angeles Dodgers had control of this game. As 2 pitches in, Shohei Ohtani hits a home run to give the Dodgers a 1-0 lead. The New York Mets respond in very quick fashion with Mark Vientos tying the game at 1. And again, I don't know where we're going to have this conversation, so I'll sneak it in here, recapping the game as a whole. Mark Vientos is becoming a star in front of our eyes. If you had any question marks about who's the starting third baseman for the New York Mets going to be in 2025 and beyond, stop. Those questions have been answered. Mark Vientos is a star. He is a power hitter. He is arguably one of the best third basemen in the National League from a hitting perspective. He will be respected as such, I believe, going into the 2025 season, and he continues to come through in a big way. It is not going to matter in the grand scheme of things with the result of tonight's game, but Mark Vientos immediately brought this game back. Even all square, 2 batters into the Mets' turn hitting, and you thought that was going to be the tide turning for this team and that they were going to be able to turn things around and win this baseball game, but that was not going to be on the table. In the 3rd inning, it's a couple of runs via a double and then an infield hit to make it 3-1. The Mets respond with a 3rd inning that could have been more, but Brandon Nimmo grounds into a fielder's choice. He beats that out to make it 3-2. And then it was all Dodgers from there. Mookie Betts doubled after a walk put some runners on. That made it 5-2. Mookie Betts in the 6th homered after a walk put Ohtani on. That made it 7-2. Tommy Edman doubled to make it 9-2. And then a bonus run for the Dodgers to make it a even 10 as they go on to defeat the Mets 10-2. And they are just 1 win away from going back to the World Series. And the New York Mets are on the brink. And they are on the brink because everything that has brought them to the dance, everything that has got them here to this moment has failed them. Everything has gone against them. And I want to start with what I feel is not the biggest culprit, but just the thing that is just staring me right in the face. And that is the decisions by Carlos Mendoza. We talked about them last night, and I'm going to talk about them again because there are a couple in this game. And I think we got to start with the lineup. This was not the right lineup to put out in this game. This offense needed a spark. They needed to turn things around. You have Brandon Nimmo who's hobbling out there. He is clearly fighting through what is immense pain. And I get it. He wants to be a gamer. He wants to be out there, but you cannot put him in the outfield and ask him to play defense inning after inning, moment after moment with what he is dealing with, the plantar fasciitis in his foot. You just can't do it. If you want to have him in there because you feel like his bat is one of the 9 best that you have, then guess what? He provides you a lefty DH right now because the guy you have as DH in JD Martinez is a shell of himself. He has been a shell of himself. He should not have been in this lineup tonight. It should have been Jesse Winker. It should have been Brandon Nimmo as a DH, and they should have found a way to get Tyrone Taylor and Harrison Bader in the lineup. You shore up your defense. Yeah, you're taking a bit of a step back with the bat that you're putting in there, but or you put Jeff McNeil out there in left field. You give him an opportunity to get multiple at bats because he could have used his lefty bat off the bench. And I don't want to hear about reverse splits. Yamamoto hasn't been in Major League Baseball for long enough for those to matter. I think we're trying too hard. And Carlos Mendoza is a good manager. He's gone with his gut more often than not, and the buttons that he has pressed has worked. But tonight is not about buttons being pressed right or wrong. These are easy decisions to be made. These are not decisions that should have been made. JD Martinez should not have been in this lineup tonight. Francisco Alvarez probably didn't need to be in this lineup tonight. Should have given him an opportunity to sit down. And so when you start the game with a lineup that's probably not the best 9 you can put out at this stage of the season, at this stage of the year, this is the most important game the Mets were going to play all year. And I'm not sure if JD Martinez is one of the best 9 options the Mets had in the most important game of the year. And you can't tell me that Jesse Winker's back was bothering him because he pinch hit late in the game. You can't tell me that you didn't want to get Jeff McNeil into this game because he got into this game in a pretty important spot, or at least what was a higher leverage situation as a pinch hitter late. So you could have put him in the outfield. You could have made Nimmo the DH. You could have sat down JD Martinez. It was just a mistake. And another mistake was after the bases loaded situation in the 3rd inning, where they only get the 1 run, but they claw back into it. The Dodgers take a 3-1 lead, and you're starting to feel like the train is leaving the station, and it's going to take the Dodgers to the World Series, and the Mets season is ending right in front of our eyes. The Mets respond. They get the bases loaded. They don't tie the game. They don't necessarily fulfill what could have been a promising opportunity, but they claw a run back. They show fight. They show life, just like they've done all year long. And then they go to the 4th inning, and Carlos Mendoza makes what I think is one of the worst decisions he's made all year. And that was the decision to keep Jose Quintana in the game for a 4th inning. Because he allows the top of the order to see Jose Quintana for a 3rd time. And I don't want to litigate here on the show tonight ad nauseum the idea of letting a starting pitcher face a lineup for a 3rd time. The numbers are pretty clear on this. It is a bad idea almost all of the time to allow any lineup to see your starting pitcher a 3rd time through over the course of a game. Are there exceptions? Absolutely. You have a guy dealing. We're talking late into the 7th, 8th, 9th inning. You're watching the game. Your gut tells you he's still got his A stuff. I'm going to give him an opportunity to get through this part of the lineup one more time. We've got a big 3-run, 4-run, 5-run lead. I can give him this. That's a moment where you do it. You don't do it when your season's on the line. You don't do it in game 4 of an NLCS when the 3rd time through this lineup is seeing Jose Quintana in the 4th inning of a baseball game. That is not the time for Jose Quintana to get a 3rd opportunity at this lineup. And yes, he got the first out, but then he sees Ohtani for the 3rd time, and he walks him, I believe. Now, I'm going to make sure that that was what he did, that he walked him, because they had so many walks, I kind of forget where they all were. We'll get to those in a little bit. But yes, he did walk him. And then Carlos Mendoza decides to go to Jose Butto in what is now the most important situation of the game. I don't care what inning it is. You just clawed back a run. It's 3-2. You have to hold the game right here. You have to give your offense an opportunity to keep this game at 1 run and to give them a shot that 1 swing ties the game. And Jose Butto, who has been a trusted reliever throughout this postseason, or at least throughout this year, is not the high leverage arm that you need to use there. The Dodgers used their closer in the 6th inning tonight. You could have used Reed Garrett there. You could have used Ryan Stanek there. You could have used, it's probably just those 2 guys that you would have probably used, but you could have used a higher leverage reliever to get out of that jam. You didn't. You had Butto come in with traffic, a converted starter into a reliever. Mookie Betts doubles, 2-run score, and it's 5-2, and it's over at that point. It's over. The Mets are not coming back in this game the moment it becomes 5-2. With the way that they were hitting with runners in scoring position, the way they missed on so many opportunities throughout this game, that was it. The game was lost there in the 4th inning. And it all goes back to why would you, if you were going to go to Jose Butto, give him a clean inning. He gets to face the bottom of the order with the 9-hitter and Chris Taylor, and then he can get to the top of the order and see them for the first time. Just felt like trying to do too much, trying to steal outs in a moment where we're not in the business of stealing outs. We got to get through this situation with the best pitchers that give us a chance to do so. And Carlos Mendoza is not going to be able to convince me that the right person in that spot was Jose Quintana seeing this lineup for the third time in the top of the fourth. You are not going to be able to convince me of that. Just not going to happen. And that was where the game was lost. I mean, because let's look at the other two times that he faced him. Or the other time that he faced him. I mean, he gave up the homer in the first. In the third, he walked him. And then in the fourth, he walked him again. Like, you can't. He didn't have it against Ohtani. There was no reason to let him see him for a third time. It just didn't make any sense. Just did not make any sense. Ohtani ended up going 1 for 3 with that home run and I think 400 walks. No, it was 3 walks. Speaking of those walks, we will talk about those walks and how this entire pitching staff and this entire series has been doomed by the walk. We will get into that next on the Locked On Mets postcast. PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app today. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. PrizePicks, the best place to get real money sports action. You can join over 10 million users and sign up today. PrizePicks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out even if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. PrizePicks puts its members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, PrizePicks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineup. PrizePicks, the best way to win real money this football season. Which players are going off, which ones aren't. Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on PrizePicks. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 instantly after you play your first lineup. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. For those of you that are regular viewers of the Locked On Mets postcast, what I'm about to say is not going to be anything new. But for those of you potentially joining us for the first time or you haven't already done so, make sure you hit the subscribe button. You turn on that notification bell here on the Locked On Sports New York YouTube channel. We are guaranteed at least one more of these. You and I are going to be together again for at least one more time during this Mets season tomorrow in what is a win or go home scenario for the New York Mets in Game 5. But if you are a football fan, you're enjoying the lovely roller coaster ride that is the Jets season, I've got you covered there on the Locked On Jets postcast. Jay Berman's got you covered on the Giants side of things, and he's also keeping tabs on that other New York team that blew a game tonight, and they did not move one step closer to the World Series. They might have opened the door for the Guardians over there on the ALCS side of things. So make sure you subscribe. You turn on the notification bell. This is a bit of a trial run here on the baseball side of things, and this went a little bit longer than I think all of us expected it on the Locked On Sports New York side of things when it came to the Mets and these postcasts. But it has been an enjoyable ride. I've enjoyed every step of the way with you all, and like I said, we've got at least one more. So if the end is tomorrow, we'll save those thank yous for tomorrow. But for those of you who are regular consumers, regular listeners, regular viewers of the Locked On Mets postcast, you will know that I've been talking about this the last couple days here on the show. The New York Mets have to figure out how to stop walking batters. It was a problem during the season that they kind of figured out in the second half, and they were able to work around it. But 9 walks tonight, 31 walks in the NLCS so far. You are not going to win baseball games that way. 31 walks in 4 games. That's just, you can't do that. 7 walks a game on average. This is too good of a team. The Dodgers are too good of a team. There was a comment about this from Andres, who says the Mets are a B-plus team trying to compete against A teams. Let's just take the second half of that statement, that the Mets are competing against A-plus teams. They are. The Dodgers are an A to A-plus team. You can't give those teams that are A-plus teams opportunity after opportunity, chance after chance, moment after moment. You can't constantly walk Shohei Ohtani and allow an MVP in Mookie Betts runners on. He crushed them tonight. He was, 4 for 5 he ended up being? 4 for 6 with 4 hits, 4 RBIs, finished a triple short of the cycle. And Shohei Ohtani was on a lot of the time in front of him. You can't do that. You can't combine for 9 walks. Your starter can't have 4 walks and 3 in the third to go along with the 5 hits that he gave up. That is not winning baseball. And it's not just Jose Quintana. It has happened all throughout this series. And it has happened all year. They had this problem early during the year, right? When they got 11 games below 500. This was kind of the thing that was hurting this team. This was the thing that was holding this team back. They didn't have command, and they're nibbling, and their plan of attack against some of these hitters is just not very good. And then they get behind in counts, and they basically just tried to avoid Shohei Ohtani tonight. It was just a disaster. And then on the other side of things, when you look at the offense, coming into this series, we talked about the New York Mets having the advantage when it came to starting pitching. We looked at the Los Angeles Dodgers that had one starting pitcher that they had confidence in Jack Flaherty. They threw a bullpen game in game 2. It was Walker Buehler in game 3, who's been up and down all year since coming back from the Tommy John surgery. And then Yamamoto, who had one good postseason start and one not good postseason start. So you walked into the series and you said, wow, this is going to be great. This is a advantageous matchup for the New York Mets. And what have the Mets done in their 2 games at home? They allowed Walker Buehler to have a season high in swing and miss. And then tonight, Yamamoto had more swing and miss in this game than he did in his first 2 postseason starts combined. It's not an approach that's going to win baseball games. This pitching staff has been struggling. And the New York Mets just went up there. They were hacking. They were swinging at everything. And they were just playing right into the game plan that the Dodgers were trying to execute. And there were a lot of swing and miss in big spots. The Mets again tonight had the bases loaded in a huge moment and didn't come through. The final stats, there were 12 Mets left on base. They were 0 for 10 with runners in scoring position. The biggest culprits being Marte, who was 0 for 3. Nimmo came up twice, was 0 for 2. You're not going to win baseball games. You're not going to win series that way. Those statistics have been absolutely dreadful for the Mets in this series. And this is what has gotten this team to the dance. They have gotten to this point with timely hitting, with station-to-station hitting, keeping the line moving, good quality starting pitching. And so far in this series, outside of a Sean Manaea start, all of that has eluded them. All of that has gone by the wayside. And now, for only the second time this postseason, the New York Mets will be facing an elimination game tomorrow. This time it'll be at home. And tonight, that feeling as the game went on, at least in my stomach, was we just watched the beginning of the end. I told you the stat earlier, 82% of the time the team that takes a 3-1 series lead goes on to win. So the Mets are now trying to be part of that 18%. They are trying to increase that 18%. If this lineup's going to still look the same, if you're not going to get the quality starting pitching, if you are not going to have the timely hitting, if your superstars aren't going to step up in the big moments, then they are not going to be a part of that 18%. They're going to help grow that side that is 82%. And that's unfortunate because this run has been so much fun and it feels like it is ending in the most heartbreaking, disappointing, slow motion fashion. That's what I felt like I was watching the season end in slow motion. The game was long. What was the runtime on the game? What did it end up being? It was a long one. 3 hours and 39 minutes. Felt every bit of it. Felt like more at times. Felt like you could have told me that was a 5-hour game. I would have believed you. And now the New York Mets are facing elimination. I'm going to spotlight one player who I believe deserves some praise outside of Mark Vientos. And we are also going to lay out the path for a Mets comeback and what this is going to look like or what this would need to look like if the Mets have one more magic trick left in them. We will do that on the other side. Your sex life is important, but your schedule is busy. You don't have the time to go to a doctor's office to get treated for ED. Well, through Hims, you can get a personalized ED treatment without stepping foot outside your door. Hims is changing men's healthcare by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your couch. Hims provides access to a range of doctor-trusted ED treatments like chewable hard mints and Viagra and Cialis and their generics for up to 95% cheaper. The process is 100% online, so there's no need for uncomfortable doctor's visits. Just answer a series of questions on their site, and a medical provider will determine the right treatment option. If prescribed, your medication ships directly to you in discreet packaging for free. No insurance is needed, and one low price covers everything from treatments to ongoing care. With hundreds of thousands of trusted subscribers, Hims can help you find the ED option that works for you. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/locked on. That's Hims, HIMS.com/locked on for your personalized ED treatment options. Hims.com/locked on. The products mentioned are chewable, compoundable products, which are not approved or verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Prices vary based on product and subscription plan. All right, let's be positive. Let's try to outline the path for the New York Mets if they are going to come back. And real quickly, I know I got on him I didn't really get on him, but I just said you can't play him in the field. But Brandon Nimmo was playing his heart out. This guy has waited forever to be in this moment with this team, with this franchise, the team that drafted him, the team that he signed a long-term extension to. He has waited forever. He has waited over a decade. He has waited nearly 15 years for this moment, and he is playing through a ton of pain. If you know anybody who has plantar fasciitis, and I do, it is debilitating. It's hard to walk. He's out there playing baseball, and the hustle that he showed on that fielder's choice to get that run across so that the Mets could make it 3-2 after replay overturned the out call at first base. You just have to tip your cap because he's playing through immense pain. The dude's going to immediately go into a walking boot. They were talking about it on a broadcast the moment the series is over. He's going to have to get intense treatment, but he is not going to miss this opportunity for the world. And you just have to tip your cap to Brandon Nimmo. And he's playing hurt, and it is somewhat impacting the defense that the Mets are able to put out there. But the heart, the commitment to this organization, to this franchise, to this fan base, it is unmeasurable what Brandon Nimmo is doing. And so he deserves his flowers for just the pain tolerance that he is going through right now to try to give this team whatever chance they still have to try to go to the World Series and to try to win it. All right, here's the plan. I'm going to see if anybody in the comments would like to help me out here, but I'm going to look to see if Carlos Mendoza has announced who the starter is going to be tomorrow. And he has. And I believe they've made the right decision. And that decision being David Peterson is going to start game 5 for the New York Mets. And you have to think that Kodai Senga is still an option as a somewhat utility reliever to maybe get you 6 outs at some point in this game. But David Peterson's been here before. The Mets needed a big start out of David Peterson. It was a must-win on a Sunday in Milwaukee, what feels like 3 years ago. And he came through in a big way for this team. And I'm sure he relishes the opportunity to finally take them out as a starter for this team. And he wants to deliver a huge moment for this team in front of the Citi Field crowd to push this series back to LA. And when you are dealing with a 3-1 series deficit like the New York Mets, it's easy to just say out loud, you have to take it one game at a time. But you really do. Because right now, going into this situation tomorrow, all of the pressure is on the New York Mets. They're the team facing elimination. They're the team that has to get up off the mat after losing 2 in a row. They are the team that needs to show the fight that this series can still be something. But the moment they do that, the moment they win tomorrow, if they are to do so, if they are able to get up off the mat, if they are able to scrap and claw and fight and respond in a big way and force this series back to LA, all the pressure flips. All the pressure is on the Dodgers because the New York Mets will be sending their ace to the mound in Game 6. They will be sending Sean Manaea to the bump to try to prolong the series. And all the pressure will be on the Dodgers to get after the Mets ace, but to also avoid a Game 7. So the pressure will flip, and it will be on the Dodgers to make sure that you don't go to a winner-take-all, all hands on deck, all bets are off, take everything that's occurred up to this point, throw it out the window because it's Game 7, winner-take-all trip to the World Series. So it's easy to say one at a time, but it truly is one at a time. And the hardest one for the New York Mets to win, in my opinion, is the one tomorrow. So if they're able to do so, if they're able to find a way to win tomorrow, and this is somewhat of a rallying cry. We don't preview the next games here on the Locked On Mets postcast. We save that for Ryan and the podcast feed, but we're going to do a little bit of it here because this is a rallying cry for everybody that's listening to my voice, who's watching the show on YouTube. This is a rallying cry for you to get excited if you're going to the game tomorrow, because the hardest one for this team to win is going to be the one tomorrow. And if they do, the door slowly creeps open. And then the ace is on the mound. This team's ace, the guy who's come through over and over and over again for this team, has already done so in this series against this team in Sean Manaea. So if we're going to have the big rallying speech, if this is my version of the miracle on ice speech to try to get everybody amped up, we're going to try it here. Tomorrow is the moment. You meet tomorrow's moment and you open the door. And this New York Mets team has done some improbable things this year. We will find out tomorrow if they have one more magic trick left, if there's still a little bit of magic juice left in the bottle. Space Jam, you think of Michael's secret stuff. Do the New York Mets have a little bit of the secret stuff left? Do the New York Mets have one more magic trick left? Is there one more rabbit that they can pull out of the hat? It's going to be up to them. It's all in front of them tomorrow, in front of a home crowd that is going to do everything in their power to will this team back to LA. And so it's going to be up to the Mets to take care of business. No matter what, we will be back here tomorrow. Good, bad, or indifferent. Season continuing, season ending. You and I will meet again here tomorrow to do another Locked On Mets postcast. It's disappointing. It's frustrating. The writing is somewhat on the wall that the Mets season is drawing very much towards a close. But until I see the Dodgers celebrating, until the fat lady sings, until the season is over, whatever cliche you want to use, until that moment comes, this Mets team in 2024 has told us to believe. Let's continue to do that. And I know it was disappointing. You were probably like me. You were texting friends throughout the game, family members, coworkers, loved ones, people you watch the games with, and you were talking about how it's over. I get it. I was there. But we're doing this show. We're talking through it. Can't give up just yet. There's at least one more game for this team to play. And hopefully, they show us that they still have some fight and that there's an inspired effort to force this series back to LA. It's going to do it for us here on this edition of the Locked On Mets postcast. The New York Mets will be playing win or go home games the rest of this series, whether it is 1, 2, or 3 games. That is the fate for the New York Mets. They have relished in these moments before. We will see if they can relish in them one more time. We will be back tomorrow to recap it all as it happens. Appreciate you joining us here on this edition of the Locked On Mets postcast. We will talk to you tomorrow after Game 5.